Hello, everyone. Good evening or good afternoon to everyone who is watching. Welcome to the A4Q World Congress. I'm happy to welcome Sammy today. He is Managing Director of Imbus Canada, specialist in software quality assurance and testing. He has over 15 years experience in the Agile software testing and quality assurance. Further, he is member of the Agile Working Group at the International Software Testing and Qualifications Board, ISTQB, and the Board of Directors at the Canadian Software Testing Board. Thank you for being here, and now I'm happy to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. And also to the audience, thank you for joining my session. Today, I am going to talk about collaborating the automation and the manual test in the Agile world. As we know, Agile project has contributed tremendously for the delivery of the product, and today we will be discussing how to leverage the manual as well as the automation test. As we have known by now, for those who have been working on Agile or not, there are some greatest challenges within Agile projects. One of the biggest challenge from a tester's point of view would be the continuous test. How do I ensure that my test is non-stop in order to deliver my product continuously to my customers? And also, how do I achieve this goal within a short iteration? These are all some of the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. And also, how do I increase my testing speed and also get the instant feedback so I can make improvements to my the testing activities? And also monitoring, how do I monitor the product quality? And also, as we know from our the manifesto, which says welcoming changes. How do I assimilate those new information into my ongoing testing efforts? And also delivering the product working software very frequently, and also bringing your business and developers and QA, what we call three amigos. How do I bring them together, which is also one of the principles of Agile? And also, how do we communicate with them in the common language? Another biggest challenge we have in Agile is having the latest environment and also the support to ensure that the environment we have, it is the latest and current. That way the testing and development work can coordinate and release the product within a timely basis. The biggest challenge is the regression, right? We all can agree on that. So we have this there are a number of challenges, but these are some of them that I like to highlight today, which we have first-hand experienced these challenges within our projects. Also, if you look at the manual efforts that has been done by the various testing groups, high performance team tend to do less of the manual tasks. Keep in mind, I'm not here to endorse only automation or only manual. I'm here to endorse leveraging between automation as well as the manual test. So if you look at the high performers, they tend to do less manual work, and they would love to automate most of the repetitive tasks as much as possible when compared to the low performers. The goal today is for us to become a high performance team player within the Agile environment. The high performers tend to automate most of the configuration management, most of their testing efforts, and also deployment from the one environment to the another environment all the way until it hits the production, and also approval process, which is again very mundane task, very tedious task. How the high performance tend to automate those approval tasks. That way you can have a very quick turnover between your defects and issues within the project or within your iterations. If you compare to the lower, medium and the low performers, high performers stand out by performing over 33% more configuration management, as well as 27% more of their testing efforts, spending 30% more of the automated deployment efforts, as well as over 27% of their change approval process. Hence, we call them high performers because they significantly do less manual work and automate most of the repetitive work. That way they can focus on other important activities necessary to ensure the project is delivered successfully. Another slide I would like to show today is the how much efforts we as a testing team spend on each of those phases within your test life cycle. If you look at the chart, over 60% of our time or of our efforts are spent gathering your requirement documents, planning your testing efforts, generating your test cases, tracing your requirements. Over 60% of the tasks are spent just managing your requirements. About 38% of the actual task is spent on executing your test, automating your scripts, ensuring you have right environment for testing, logging defects and fixing them, and also reporting. And other 2% we spend on other various closure activities like versioning or archiving and such that. So our goal is to automate as much as possible within every stages of your test life cycle. The more you automate, the more time you will be relieved to spend other important tasks such as the exploratory testing or a high risk area testings, right? How do I address these challenges? How do I address spending more time on performing manual tests? How do I overcome those challenges? One way to think about the strategy is the risk-based testing, right? And also investing more on your test automation. When you think about test automation, the couple of things that you have to consider when you're thinking about implementing your test automation, along with your risk-based testing and the exploratory testing. When I talk about automation, I'm talking about automating at all test levels. All the test levels I just talked about, the planning and designing and execution, you want to ensure that you can automate them, most of those levels as much as possible. And the reason is to get the faster feedback. And also, another important decision you might want to consider is to reuse existing framework rather than reinventing the wheel. There are a number of frameworks available in the market today, which I'm going to share some of them during today's session. We want to reuse those framework so that we can enable and implement our automation within a short period of time. And also build deployment, automating those build deployment and also executing your test by using automation tool should be one of the factors to be considered to invest in automation. And also environment, ensuring that you have the right environments available, and also restoring your environment once your iterations are complete is also very, very important within your agile cycle. And you have to ensure that you can automate those. And also the maintenance effort. Do not discount on the maintenance effort, which might be significantly high if you do not automate them. Right? These are some of the decisions you might want to think about when you want to implement some automation within your agile projects. Again, when I say automation, I'm not reinventing anything new here. Automation has been built within your agile manifesto. The necessity for test automation in agile actually comes from one of your manifesto, which is response to changes rather than following your plan, right? Here, I would like to say rapid responses, because we have to respond to those changes instantly within your sprint cycle, however small that could be. So automation is nothing new to the agile. It is built right into your manifesto. So why should I even invest my time on automation? Number one, we want to be high performance, right? I showed some of the percentage numbers, which shows significantly high performance teams spend less time on manual tasks. So we want to be efficient tester, and also we want to build a better software for our customers. And at the same time, we want to deliver them at a faster rate so that our customers can have them, the software, and also they can provide the feedback within a timely manners. So when you want to consider the criteria, then you want to consider that you want to automate any of your tasks which you are executing them very often. Any task you're repeating few times, you rather want to automate them. And also you might want to consider automating any of the manual tasks. For example, anything that you cannot execute them manually. For example, the non-functional test or the performance and load, such that. And also, if you want to test at a faster rate within a sprint, then you may want to consider investing within your automation. When I talk about automation, there is a myth going on that automation finds more defects, which is really not true, right? Automation might find defects faster. It might find the obvious defects faster, but there is no way automation can find more defects. So this is where I was talking about leveraging both your manual and automation test. And also, myth is that you can automate everything, which is also not possible. You got to pick and choose the area which makes more sense in automation. One area that I mentioned is anything that you're repeating many times, you may rather want to automate them. And also, other myth I always been asked about is, will the automation test makes manual test obsolete? Which is also not true, right? Manual test brings the human emotions and human intuition into the product, whereas the automation test will bring the obvious defects or obvious failure in the project. So you want to balance both manual and automation. And of course, the manual test will not be obsolete just because we're introducing automation into your project. When I talk about delivering a product faster and better, we want to ask 3 questions to ourselves even before we consider going into the automation efforts. How do I make my product better? How do I make my test faster and also keeping the cost low? And what are the tools available in order to ensure that I can achieve my goal? And how can I find the defects in the product at a faster phase? So you need to answer these 3 questions before you can even put any efforts into researching for tools. Keep in mind, choosing a tool and trying to make the tool work for your project may not work best for your ongoing projects. Your project may tend to fail, and also choosing a wrong tool to achieve certain goal also may not be useful, right? So you have to choose the right tool that can support your projects. That is, at first choose an automation approach. What approach you want to achieve, you want to implement to achieve your goal, and then choose a tool that can help you with that approach. The one guide that I would go to every time I decide about automation or a manual, or whether to choose between tools available, I would always go to the agile testing quadrants, which is very useful, in order to make a decision whether you want to automate your test, whether you want to execute them manually, or whether you want to even choose the tools, right? The testing quadrant, as we all know, for those who have been working in the agile environment, testing quadrant gives you an idea between the technology facing and the supporting a team, the business facing, and also critiquing the product. It tells you what type of test you may want to consider and what type of tools you may possibly want to use. For example, for any unit testing or any workflow testing, you may rather want to automate them. Any functional test, any business-driven testing, you may want to automate them using some of the automation tools available in the market, and also you may want to consider running some of the high-risk manual testing as well. When I talk about performing usability test or a user acceptance test, you may want to consider executing them manually. And when we talk about the performance and the load test, there are tools available, number of tools available in the market that we have to that we can utilize them. So this testing quadrant gives you a general idea of what type of testing we need to do and what type of approach we need to take, as well as what type of tools are available. And also keep in mind, it doesn't matter what approach you choose or what type of testing you need to choose, that should always be included in your definition of done during your sprint planning. So when I talk about tools, again, this quadrant will help you decide what type of tools is necessary in order to perform certain types of testing. For example, for unit testing, there might be JUnit or TestNG. I'm not endorsing any tools here. I'm just letting you know what tools are available in the market that you can pick and choose to make a better decision. When I talk about functional tests, there are Cucumber, or there are the most popular one, Selenium with a robot framework. Those are very common tools that could aid in automating some of your the functional test. When I talk about executing your the user acceptance test, exploratory testing, from Imbus, we have a test bench, which is one of the popular tool for executing exploratory testing. Fitness is one of the popular. When I talk about non-functional test, we have a number of tools available. The common one is the load runner or JMeter, right? So this quadrant gives you an idea what approach we need to take, what type of testing we need to do, and what tools are available. There are a number of tools, as I said, buffet of tools available in the market. Now you have to make a research what tools would work best for your team. I have listed the link on the slide for more information about what tool works best for you, and some of the discussions about the tools and the pros and cons. You can go to our information platform. It's the URL is testtoolreview.de. It is available in a number of languages, English and German, and other languages. You can pick and choose. So on the test tool review, there are a number of discussions available on different types of tools in the market that could help you make your decisions. When I talk about the tools, what approach am I going to choose, right? As I said, the number of tools available. Keep in mind, as I said before we talk about tools, we have to decide the approach. What approach am I going to choose? There are various approaches available, all the way from a record and playback approach to a script programming for those who are familiar with the programming languages. You can even choose a data-driven approach or a keyword-driven approach or even a framework-based approach. Each of those approaches has its own pros and cons, has its own maturity levels, depending on what maturity your organization is, or what is a maturity of automation approach within your organizations, and also the skills. What type of skills do you have within your team can decide what approaches you're going to choose. When I talk about the maturity, here I would like to showcase with the different approaches, what kind of maturity you can achieve. For example, if you want to decide on record and playback kind of approach for your software testing, yes, they are very simple to use because the tools are readily available, which you can record your script and rerun them as many times as you want. It could be cost effective because pretty much any testing resource can get use of the tool and record their testing scripts, but they may not be maintainable. They may not be robust. When I look at the data-driven approach, they might be simple. Yes, it depends on the number of data you have. It could be simple. It could be cost-effective. Again, they may not be maintainable, and also, they may not be independent because the test may be dependent on the data that you have. Keyword-driven approach, which is one of my favorite approach, is it may not be as simple as the record and playback, but it is maintainable. Whenever there is a code churns, you have a keyword driven, which you can update your scripts at instant. They could be robust, but again, it may not be cost effective because you might have to have a dedicated resources to manage those scripts. Model based approach is also one of the most commonly used within the agile world. They are not cost effective, of course, for obvious reason that you need to have skilled resources who are familiar with that approach to be part of your project, but they are maintainable, and also they are robust, and also that can be shared between your number of Scrum teams. So depending on the maturity of your organization and also the maturity of your automation efforts that you have, then you can choose the number of the approaches that's available. When I talk about automation, choosing your approaches for the test automation, you do not want to perform maintenance whenever there is a software changes. Whenever when you're investing more maintenance efforts, whenever there is a changes to your software, that tells that your automation efforts within your organization may be immature. And also, generating those automation script takes much longer than executing your manual script. Again, that is an indicator that your automation efforts within organization might be immature, right? The best practice here is to, as I said, to use your existing framework that is available. Also, you can use the hybrid approach. For example, the keyword-driven with the data-driven was found to be very, very effective. And also having a control on your environment to ensure that you have a latest environment available, to ensure that the environment that developers is working on is environment the tester is also working on, also is one of the best practice if you want to implement your automation. And also detecting your object, your test object based on the unique identifier rather than using a label is also one of the best practices when you want to invest your efforts for the automation. the effective approach for investing in automation would be, number one, just to rephrase what I said, to evaluate the tool, to ensure the tool meets your requirement rather than choosing a tool and then making changes. Evaluate what type of approach I'm going to choose, and do I have a tools that can support them. And also usage of your framework. What is your existing framework that is available? If yes, then can I use those framework rather than reinventing the wheel? There are a number of frameworks available. Choose the one that best works for your team. And also reporting, to ensure that you have a live reporting available and that live monitoring for the faster feedback. Keep in mind that is one of the principles of Agile, to respond to changes and also to provide a faster feedback with the working software. So ensure that whatever approach you choose, have a reporting and live reporting and monitoring. And also automation efforts that you're going to choose should adapt to your changes, the changes in the software quickly. Whenever the changes, you do not want to spend too much time and efforts on maintenance. Rather than, you should have chosen approach that could adapt your the software changes. Use of behavior-driven development to involve the non-technical business into your project is has found to be very, very effective. And also adding the quality criteria right into your acceptance criteria. For example, I want to perform 80% of my test should be automated before before we promote to the next sprint. So those quality criteria should be part of your definition of done. Above all, we want to be testing non-stop. The testing has to be ongoing to ensure that we have the latest code available. How do we achieve the non-stop testing? Again, this is not, I'm not reinventing the non-stop testing. This is part of your Agile manifesto. That is the test developers and testing team should work together. So the one way to coordinate the developers and test team within an Agile project is, while the developers implementing a unit test, maybe testing team can review those unit tests to ensure that all the requirements are covered or all the features are covered. When the test team are specifying the system test for the specific user stories, development team can review them to ensure that those stories are covered within the test framework. While the developers are coding them, maybe test team can work on scripting those automations test. And also development team can aid the test team in generating those scripts. And the test team can execute the automation script, while the development team can work on any bug fixes and rerunning those unit tests. And also testing team can spend more time on performing the exploratory testing to cover all the edge cases and the difficult scenarios. And also they can aid in the retesting of those fixes. So there should be a coordination between the development team and testing team to ensure that your project is delivered on time. The checklist, if you want to move from manual to automation, is number one, you want to ensure what product you're going to automate. As I said, you cannot automate everything. You should not be automating everything. So you want to identify areas where you want to automate them. For example, anything that you're repeating, any test that you're repeating number of times, most likely you may want to consider automating them. For example, the regression test. Also, identify the scope of your test automation. Do you want to automate all the repeatable tests, or do you want to automate test for multiple configurations, or do you want to automate any functionality that is complex, right? And also, when you're selecting a tool, you have to look for a tool that can best support your product. For example, do they have the features? Does the tool have the feature that can support my goal? Or is it easy to use, or is there a training available? And what type of framework are you going to select? Or is it going to be data driven, or is it going to be keyword, or even it could be a hybrid, right? And also strategy. Are we going to use a script for programming, or are we going to use existing libraries from Selenium, or existing keywords? And what kind of type of skills we have in the team that can support our automation strategy, right? And also ensure that your team are enabled to use those tools by providing necessary training and also motivating the team to use the tools as much as possible. Keep in mind, ensure that your infrastructures are ready, they're up to date, so that your team can use those latest available infrastructures. And also strategy when it comes to the upgrading your software, upgrading your environment. Ensure that there is upgrade strategy. Are you going to upgrade them every cycle or every sprint or every quarter? So there need to be some kind of strategy for the maintenance and the upgrade efforts. In the long run, maintenance efforts can take significant efforts. So you need to have the strategy to implement them from the get-go. So some of the positive benefit of using the tool, of course, as I talked about, is automating your task. Anything that is repeatable, mundane task, automation can aid in automating those repeatable tasks. Again, I'm not taking away from the manual task. You need to keep the manual task, but you want to automate as much as possible. And also, automation also provides motivation to your team, to the employees, and also functionality. Any functionality that is difficult to execute manually, for example, the performance or the load, any kind of non-functional test, then you want to automate them. And also your tools will help you automate those type of tasks. And also tools will help with the reminders. You can use your script as a living document. If a functionality is working, that means you have scripts. All the scripts has been tested and passed. That means that becomes your living document. And also it will help you reproduce your test again and again, any number of times, and it will help you get the same results any number of times. That way you can ensure that your code is stable. That way it can be promoted to the production. And also the tools can be a communication tool between the test team, development team, and also business team. When you talk about tools, there are certain criteria that you want to think about. It depends on how many team will be using the tools or how big your product is. You have to think about the scalability, how big the project. Depending on the project, then you have to think about how many users might be using them, and then you have to choose a tool that can support that many users. And also portable. If you're working on a product that serves on multiple platforms, multiple configuration of platforms, or multiple locations, geolocations, then you have to ensure that your tool that you're going to select is portable. And also it should be operable. Right? That means they're user-friendly. There are documentations available, training available in case you need any help for executing any of your automation scripts. Ensure that it is maintainable, right? So you have a regular updates on the tools, and how do you implement those upgrades on the tools? And also there are supports available. There are a number of materials available or online forum available, just like the test tool review I talked about. And also, is there any training documentations available? And also integratability with another technical platform. Are you supporting only Windows only, or Windows and iOS software? So you need to have sub tools that can support in multiple technical platform, and also APIs, how the APIs readily available. That way we can integrate with a number of team or number of team within your Scrum. Here, as I said from get-go, I'm not here to endorse just manual automation. We want to find a balance between them. Manual test, as I said earlier, they do bring it has its own benefits. It brings human emotions into your test. It also provides you the visual feedback when you're running your test executions. And also manual test provides you the human judgment, intuition, whether do you like the software or whether you do not like the software, or is there some elements within the software that is not user friendly. So the manual test does bring the human emotions into the product, whereas automation will ensure that you can run those tests at the faster phase. You can find the defects at the faster phase, and also your tests are more effective. That means you're taken away from mundane tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis rather than you automate them. And also automation test will help you have the enough test coverage to make a decision whether your product is ready to be released to the customers or not, right? So we need to find the right balance between the manual and the automation test. Add human emotions to your product. At the same time, you want to execute them at the faster phase. Okay, so that's my topic today. Thank you very much for everyone to join me and also listen to what I have to say. And hopefully, if you have any Q&A, I'll be available to answer some of your questions.
Thank you very much, Sammy, for the interesting presentation. It seems like that the audience is satisfied and no questions appeared for now, but you will be available in the Imbus booth right after the presentation. So if someone has like any further comments or questions, he or her can contact you.
Awesome.
So further, we received feedback from Clarita. She will be visiting the test tool site.
Okay, awesome.
And further,
Yep.
Maria said, "Thank you, great talk."
Awesome. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the virtual booth.
Thank you for being there.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye.